This is To the Bar. Strength in every story. And now for today's show.
Welcome to the bar.
Thank you very much. Sorry.
So I'm Jess Roebuck-Saini and
I'm Aaron Holt.
And today's guest we have got Julie Morrish.
Hello, and welcome to Oxford PowerSports,
Yes,
our
thank you very
glorious
much.
home.
We've finally got here. So Julie was actually one of the first people that I ever approached and said, would you really come on the podcast as a guest, before we'd even had a guest, way back when it was just Aaron and I rambling at you both, all three listeners that we've got. So yeah, it's really lovely to have you here.
Thank you. It's great to be here. It's the first podcast I've ever done, so this is super exciting, and I feel honoured to be here. So thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
It's a privilege. Yeah, it's a real privilege. So, as is our usual format, we've got a couple of questions, and then if there's anything that you want to talk about specifically, that'd be great. So,
Brilliant.
I mean, for me, my first question is always, how did you get into weightlifting?
I fell into it, and I am very glad I did fall into it. So a bit of history. So I have a corporate job during the day. So I work in the tech industry, in marketing, and about 18 years ago, I felt I was on the verge of burning out. And I grew up doing a lot of competitive sports. So I was a swimmer and I did running, and I stopped doing everything. And I was just so sucked into work and my career, and I felt I needed something outside of work. I didn't quite know what it was at the time. And I joined a gym and thought, right, I'd get fit. But I didn't go because I didn't feel comfortable in the gym. It was just a commercial gym. So I started doing some personal training with an Australian guy called Luke, and he got me strong, and I was doing squats and dead, and I was getting really strong, and I was so excited about how strong I was getting. But he was an ex-Commonwealth Junior champion weightlifter, and he'd be in the gym going, this is snatch, this is clean jump. I'm like, I want to do that. And weightlifting wasn't very cool back then. He was like, well, you can't do it here, it's a commercial gym. I'll take you somewhere where you can learn to weightlift. And he took me along to a place called Morris Motors Weightlifting. It was very spit and sawdust, a bit like what we've got here, and introduced me to Marius Hardiman. And I took up weightlifting, and I did a lot of weightlifting, competed in masters, really enjoyed it, and we left Morris Motors and set up this place, and then Gareth joined us not long after we had arrived here, and we've been in this facility for I think about 16 years now.
Wow.
So a long time. I stopped competing at weightlifting, so I have some medical conditions. So I have Crohn's disease and psoriatic arthritis, and training, I went through a very difficult stage with that when I was first, didn't know what was wrong with me. I was trying to snatch, my wrists weren't, it was like, I stopped being able to snatch because my wrists and joints were so bad. And eventually I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, and then eventually with the arthritis as well. And that started a new journey for me. So that was 14 years ago. And, I come back, and then I go off and I come back. And actually mentally, I knew that I wasn't ever really going to get back to where I was. But I'd come here all the time and would have new people come in, and I'd teach them how to weightlift. But I never called myself a coach for a long time. And then realised actually how much I enjoyed teaching people to weightlift and getting them to believe in themselves. And that's when I started coaching. So first person I coached was a lady called Jane Fox, who's a masters lifter. I don't know if you know her. She's amazing. She's with her son at CrossFit Aylesbury. She was amazing, and will always be a good friend. So, and that's kind of the history of how I started weightlifting and got into weightlifting and coaching weightlifting. So, fell into it, and very, very glad I did, because I'm very thankful every day for the people I coach, and it feels like a privilege. So
yeah, it's nice, isn't it, when you're not able to weightlift yourself, or you're not able to necessarily compete at a level that you would like to still be able to share that and still be so involved in the community is a really nice feeling. So
I always say I'm a much better coach than I was a weightlifter. I don't think I was a very good weightlifter. But
It's been a hard transition though, because I always think that whenever I'm injured, it's that whole thing of I take it very seriously. And it's my identity. People have sort of talked about it recently that if you take that away from you, who are you? But obviously, I'm much more than just some amateur weightlifter. But
exactly.
That switch for you. It's great that you didn't actually walk away from it.
Yeah, it's been like an accepting thing that that like trying to balance a stressful job and doing doing the coaching and managing. And I don't really talk a lot about my conditions and what it's like every day, because I don't want that to define me, if that makes sense. So it's just something I deal with, but I've accepted over the years that it is what it is. So you focus on what you can do, and to try and put myself through that. Yes, I could probably come back for a certain amount of months, but something comes along and sets you back. And physically you can come back, but mentally it just gets a bit draining. And I'll always be here doing some, training on and off, because it's important. Everyone needs to do some strength training, so I know that's important. But I'm so passionate about this sport, and passionate about coaching, and especially coaching kids. And I talk about every coach, every kid that I coach, they're like my children. They're I'm like another mum to them. So that's, and each one of them is different, and you go on a different journey with all of them. And the parents trust you, and here with all the parents that we have, with the kids we coach, they're just like another family. So.
Yeah. And I mean, considering how long you've been in this place and how the history here, the amount of young people, kids, the amount of people you must have had through this gym.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I can't remember all of the people that have been through this gym. But, the history of Oxford PowerSports is, it was an evolution of Morris Motors Weightlifting Club, which started in the 1960s. And, Marius grew up in weightlifting and lifting for Morris Motors. And, when we came here, we were like, it's a new start, it's a new name. But that history always will be part of it. Will come with it. So
it's like a minor identity change, isn't it? It's still at the heart. It's the same thing. It's just ever so slightly variant.
But if you look here, it's a very 90s. It's a very 90s environment. We haven't quite moved into.
I'm going to do a little video tour before we leave, because this is my kind of gym. We walked in and it took at least 20 minutes before I set anything up, because I was too busy looking at all the cool kit.
When we talk about new people coming here, I always pre-warn, it's not glamorous. I warn you now, it's not glamorous.
I don't want it to be.
All the best weightlifting gyms aren't necessarily glamorous. Yeah, it's more about the people, isn't it? And
definitely
the environment, and being around other people that are as passionate about the sport as you are.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think lifting alongside or with people that love what you do the same way you do is what you're looking for, really, when you go for a weightlifting gym. It's not about glitz and glamour, is it? Even if you have got a glitzy,
it'd be nice if it was warmer in
disco
the winter.
Ball.
Yes.
We do. I did walk in one day and there was a disco ball in the gym.
So that's your glitz and glamour.
Yes, that's a Marius thing. Like, why do we have a disco ball in the gym? Because we can.
Because we can.
Why not?
Why not? Yeah.
I love that answer. Because we can.
So when we run competitions here, so this is the platform that they will lift on, and then you've got the warm-up room, which is the other side of because this is an old squash court, as you can probably tell, and we put that door in, so when we run competitions, it was easy, we could kind of that easy way in. It's like you come out to a disco ball.
Yeah.
It's different like that, actually.
Yeah, it needs some spotlights on it.
Yeah.
So on the door, you've got 1964. Is there a relevance to that?
So that's the year that Morris Motors, or actually was, I think, then Wolvercote Boys Club, I believe, which was the initial. So that's actually the year that the club was founded. So
you say Boys Club as the door's got two dancing women on it.
This is another Marius. That door was another, I don't know, Skip Fine from Marius. He's very good at collecting junk. And junk makes its way in here. We've had some very odd looking things in this gym before. I think at one point there was a car seat and a lamp in that corner over there.
I'm not going to lie. If Aaron and I ever managed to have a gym, or if I ever got my own gym, it would just be full of random stuff, to be honest, because why not? Yeah. So long as there's a nice platform and a nice bar to lift with, that make it feel like home, right?
Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, you talking about working with kids and them feeling like your family probably really helps me come on to my second question, really, which is you being a real staple at BWL events, which was why you were the first person I ever said, how did you feel about being a guest on a podcast? Because you were the first coach that I remember way back when I first started as a TO, seeing every time I TO'd, and then seeing you go off with the juniors or the youth and seeing you travel with BWL as a BWL coach. And I suppose the question really, as I've rambled my way through that, is how did you get into that and working with the youth and the juniors with BWL?
Again, it was a little bit by chance, really. So, because I have been around quite a long time, and I think, someone like Stu would see me at, again, like a staple at competitions, and, he asked me to step in to do a couple of, this is probably about 7 years ago now, would I, step in. So I did a European senior event, and that was, I don't remember where that was now, but it was around when they did the Gold Coast Commonwealth Games, so he was out, and all the coaches were out there, and so Giles and I took a team out to the European Championships, and that was my first international. I thought it was going to be like a one-off. I didn't expect it ever to happen again, and then a couple of other things. So I went out to Las Vegas for World Youths, and that was with Drew Burns and Myron when they were kids. And so, these just opportunities just came up. So it was never like really a formal thing. It was just like, oh, can you do this one? Can you do that one? Yeah. And then like COVID happened, and it didn't happen for a while. And then Stu got him back in contact. Can you help out here? And then he was like, oh yeah, we realised why we like having you on these competitions, and then it just became more and more regular, really. So but I still wait for it to stop, if that makes sense. I'm still have to pinch myself sometimes that I'm doing this, really.
Which I think I love. I think we do that quite a lot with the opportunities we get, is that pinch yourself moment of as if we're sitting doing this, as if you get the opportunity which shows I think the real love for the sport, because for you to still feel like that after all that time shows a real passion. So it's interesting that you brought that one up, though, because I think that's the one that I had actually put in our history of Julie, was you and Giles. So
this is your lifestyle.
This is your life. This is my red book. Julie, this is your life. So would that have been Romania?
Yes, it was Romania. Yes, I've done quite a few now, so I can't remember where they all are.
Yeah, so with Chris Murray, Nurin, Olivia,
and
Amy Williams, Bobby Ross.
The thing I love about the whole sort of weightlifting thing is that you do go to some random places.
You
don't
do,
you?
And sometimes it's a bit hit and miss with the food and accommodation. And like Christian has, and it's now stuck. I'm now known as Bougie Julie because, I have a certain expectation of how I live, I suppose, and it doesn't always kind of live up to that. And they're like, "Oh yeah, you're just Bougie Julie."
Yeah. I've been to Romania. I can imagine Bougie Julie not enjoying that.
Yes, and then I did another seniors. We went to Batumi, and that was in Georgia. Yeah. And if you got into the buffet after Lasha, there wasn't much food.
I can well imagine.
And the food there was a bit hit and miss, I have to say. Yeah, like getting there before Lasha.
That's got to be on a t-shirt somewhere.
But that was
before Lasha.
That was an amazing one, because you had Zoe won medals there, and Emily Musket won medals there, and Emily Campbell, and it was just like, it was amazing. I was like, that was definitely a pinch me.
Yeah. Like a peak moment.
Yeah. We were like, wow, this is amazing.
So when you think now, obviously when I see you travelling now, you're travelling with... here, when I've just read that list out, it's pretty evenly split, really, between boys and girls. And now you're travelling pretty much solely with girls. I don't know that there's that many, unless I'm sort of blanking out, there's not that many boys on the youth and the juniors, but what is it actually like travelling with all these kids? Because it's got to be a lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
You talk about feeling like their mum and
Yeah.
they're your kids. It must feel like that.
Yeah, because you're definitely, I think, I always see myself as their emotional support system. You know, you're there to make their lives as, as easy as possible and comfortable as possible, but you're always on.
Yeah.
It doesn't end at the end of the, it's not an end of the day, it ends, if they need me in the middle of the night, I'll be there in the middle of the night for them. So yeah, you totally feel the responsibility of, you're the guardian, their support system, and you just got to give them what they need really to make their trip as enjoyable. And for me, the most important thing is it's fun.
Yeah.
Because when it becomes not fun, they're not going to want to do it anymore, right?
Yeah.
So
and then we lose people.
Yeah.
I was going to say, because the pressure, I guess, surrounding training camps or competitions abroad, international comps, that it must be for young shoulders must be really difficult.
Yeah.
And so for you, your role isn't, of course, just sitting there saying, remember the full extension or rock the arms out. It's a lot more than that.
It's less about that because at that point it's you're not really doing a lot of technical coaching. It's about just making sure they're happy, comfortable, as relaxed as they can be, and
having
fun, because what's the point otherwise, because you've got to enjoy it, right? So
yeah. It resonates a lot with me with why we started the podcast in terms of being the TOs. When I hear you talking about it's all about the lifter just having fun, or making it the best for the lifter on the platform. So in a slightly different way, obviously, because you're there as an emotional support system and being able to support them through this journey abroad and sort of being there when they can't necessarily be with their families. But for us, it's that similar feeling. Is the whole point of being a TO is for that lifter on the platform is to make sure that everything goes well for them, that they have everything that they need to do their best performance. So it's nice hearing that in a way and thinking actually everybody's doing the exact same thing, just in different positions. Perhaps. There's
been a few tears cried on this shoulder. But but sometimes that's just an emotional release, because they go out there, the pressure builds up, and even if they have a good competition, it's an emotional release for them. So it's they can get emotional, which is perfectly understandable. And I get emotional as well.
I still do. I still would now. Yeah. I can imagine.
You want them to do well and do their best, and when they do well and they win a medal, I'm like the first one crying away. I cry probably more than them. So I try and do it without them seeing. I'm like, it's okay, I'm not crying.
Pride tears.
I'm not crying. You're crying.
I'm not crying.
Tears of pride.
Yeah, you do. You feel an immense amount of pride in when they do well, and you've been part. Even you're just a small part of that.
Yeah.
You feel just such amount of pride.
Yeah, which again I can probably identify with, because I end up watching on the little screen when I'm on the marshals table and feeling proud of kids that probably I don't even know who I am, but I feel like I've watched their journey as they've gone out onto that platform and hit a PB, and I feel proud of them, even if they don't necessarily know, and I feel proud of the little bit that I've managed to play in that journey. So.
I mean, you've watched me go out and nearly vomit my heart with some my lifters, literally.
I've literally snuck out with you and pretended to be a technical controller.
I'm calm. I just have to try and put this calm look on my butt, and inside I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. I think going out at the when Lottie went out at the English, she was like, I want 100 kilos on for the snatch, and I'm like,
I remember you at the marshals table dithering and me being like, do it, go on, do it. Go on, just do it.
You know what? You just got to do it. And then I was like, you better not let me down now, Lottie.
You asked for it.
She was adamant though.
She was. When someone's that confident and they're telling you that, when she tells me that confident, that's what she wants, then I'm like, I'm going to listen to that.
Yeah.
And she smashed it.
Yeah, I remember. Well, that's the one where I pretended to be technical controller and left the table to come out with you, and that video comes up on Instagram all the time from Grip and Rip, and I'm stood in the background behind you, pretending to be technical controller, but because she made it, because she was so. I remember having the conversation with you at the table of, she wants it. And she's going to do it. She's obviously going to do it.
It's a balance, because you're trying to get her as many kilos ahead because she's going to need it. Yeah. But she was like, I want it, and I'm like, I can't deny that. Yeah. But I did actually vomit my heart.
Love it.
Thank you, Lottie, for making that lift.
Yeah, I kind of knew she would do it, because you kind of know, like, you get to know your lifters that well by their body language, and the way she walked out to that lift, I'm like, she is going to do it. She believes she's going to do it, and that's, if she believes she's going to do it, she is going to do it.
Well, that's half the battle, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's another reason why I love the Marshall's table, is watching the mental dexterity of some of the lifters.
Yeah.
So watching their routines and their warm-ups and the way they approach the bar, or you sometimes, again, like you say, you can tell when people walk out for a lift, you can see on their face that they've got it.
You know that they're going to get it.
Or you can see that they're already doubting it, and I think you need to pull that together before you get on that platform, because you can see if they're not in the right brain space.
Kind of, with our, lifters here, I know when they go out on the platform how good a chance they've got, because and especially the girls, I'm like, you've got to go out in confidence. That's the one thing I always say to them, just go out there with confidence, with big body language, because then you approach that bar in a way that's kind of meaningful, that you're going to do it. Because if you go out and you're like, oh, I'm frightened, you are not going to do it. So if you walk out there and you stride out there with confidence, you're going to have the best chance of lifting that bar. So I always shout confidence a lot to a lot of the lifters.
Yeah, it's something I had been really working on myself in my own training, was the intention, and this whole idea of it starting at the chalk bin is what I say to myself. So my routine starts from putting the chalk on and seeing myself finish the lift. And as you said, I'm not a great weightlifter, but it made such a difference to actually believe that I was going to do a lift. And I know when I approach a bar if I'm going to miss it, because I'm telling myself already that I'm
exactly. So yesterday the team went to a competition at Crazy Strength, and I couldn't be there because I was at a wedding, and one of my lifters, I know she was really nervous. I'd seen her she came and did a session with me on Wednesday, and I literally sent her a voice note on WhatsApp and I told her she had to look in the mirror and tell herself she was a good lifter, and then I sent her a message going, you've got to go out with confidence, and you need that voice. I want you to go out with my voice in your head and she did 5 out of 6 lifts, and and I was so proud of her. So, and she didn't need me to be there to do it, so that's awesome. Good.
Yeah, that's that self-belief.
So at a club level, obviously you're here with your athletes, and you can get to get that input, and you get to be able to coach them not only just the weightlifting but the mindset side of things and the confidence, trying to instill that. And how does that work for BWL, for those for the youth lifters there? Do they have something in place, or do you fill that role as well?
No, so because they have, obviously a lot of them have their own personal coaches, so before we go out to and sometimes I'm on them, because again I have to kind of manage it around work, but generally before they go out to competition there'll be like a performance meeting, so be Stu or Christian will run them, their coach might join, and then if I can join, I'll be joining, and we go through what is it they're trying to achieve and what their goals and their kind of warm-up routine and all of those things that so you get to know what they need, so we have a clear idea of what they want, what they need from you in the warm-up room, as well as kind of what they're trying to do. So that will generally happen with their coach, or you've got, that's always happens beforehand, and generally the night before they lift we all get together and we have a chat and we just reinforce some of those things. So
it's a really nice way of doing it. I'd always wondered how it works. I'd seen Giles had put something on, it was ages ago, on Instagram about Freya, and sort of trusting, obviously he coaches her and then she goes off to international, and just sort of handing over and being able to hand your lifter over. I'd always wondered how that works, but I suppose that makes perfect sense that you would do that together seamlessly, because obviously you've both got the lifter is the centre, so why wouldn't everybody come together? It's just interesting to
and I've been on both sides of the coin, if you like, because obviously I go out and I'm in that coaching at these international comps, but also we've, like when Lottie lifted at the European Championship, I wasn't there because I had come back early, so you're having to put, and knowing it's her first international, you're having to put your faith in the, and obviously you do that because you're on the other, you've seen the other side. But before I was a coach, we used to, we've had lifters here that have gone out for internationals and haven't always agreed with the decisions that have been made, and it is quite hard because you're like, well, why have they done that? Or, so I get both sides of it really, because we've sat on both sides.
You've seen both sides, yeah. Yeah, it's just. I think it's fascinating for me as an amateur lifter to, there's nowhere where you would hear about any of these stories necessarily, or how you would understand how that works for British weightlifting in terms of international comps. So it's really nice to hear. What goes on.
Yeah, and I've take some of that approach now with with our lifters as well, where we talk a bit more about what is it, what you want to get from that competition, where are you, because if you look at the English age groups, we had 3 lifters there, and they were all close, or could win a medal, or could and 2 of them did, and one of them unfortunately bombed out because we were trying to push it on the clean and jerk, which is really hard when you've made that decision. But you talk about, well, actually, what is it you want to get out of it? And so you're on the same, it's not just on us pushing page. Them saying, you can win a medal, so you've got to go for it. It's like, what do you want? You've seen the start list. What's your thinking? What do you want to get out of it? So we're not pushing it, because then if we're pushing them too hard, it goes back to the point, it's not fun anymore. And my number one kind of thing is, for all of these lifters, it's got to be fun, and I need to make it fun. And I could be the best technical coach or the best programmer, but if you don't make it fun, you're going to lose them. That has to be a priority. So that's always my thing, keep it fun, keep it.
I really like that idea of it all being a bit more collaborative. Yeah.
And it puts some back, it puts it back on them to tell you what they want.
Yeah.
But, it takes time to, you get to know your lifters over, it takes time, right? So initially they'll look to you to be more making those decisions for them. But as you get to know them over time, you can start to say, okay, well, let's make these decisions together.
Yeah. Yeah. So when we talk about your international comps, is there any one particular you think that stands out for you as a highlight for any reason? Either the food was particularly or
a great one of the best locations we went to was the World Juniors in Greece. That was amazing accommodating, lovely. It was really, really nice. And that was the first one I did after coming, the whole COVID and all of that. And, so that felt, pretty special actually. But, each one comes with something different, so, generally you go and you have fun, and, you just enjoy it, you just make the most of being there. Yeah, sometimes it is tough, the food, when we went to the World Juniors in Mexico, the food was really bad.
Oh no!
It was,
I love Mexican
and I'm
food
probably
as well.
Christian will go, "You're a fussy eater." We'll always argue about this. You're a fussy eater. I'm like, no, I just eat, decent food. But everyone got, pretty tired quickly of the food.
Oh, the same thing.
Yeah.
We were all quite, and we ended up having to, you end up actually spending a lot of money because you can't eat the food in the hotel, so you go and buy the food. And but a few other places stand out for bad food as well. But it's, you just get some really, as I said, when I did I haven't done much in the way of seniors, but I've done that trip to Georgia was, when people are winning medals, and Emily Campbell won a medal, and Emily Musket and Zoe, it was just amazing to be part of that. You think, wow, this is just amazing.
And I feel like that's the one, because we had Emily on as a guest, where Emily was actually the first female to win a gold. Emily Musket was the first female to win a gold medal at that level for a long time. I'm pretty sure that one was it?
So Zoe won, and then Emily. So Zoe got a bronze. I can't remember, but they all met. So Zoe medalled, and then Emily medalled, and then Emily Campbell medalled, and that was at the European. I think later they went to the World Champion, and she won the first. She won at a World, or got bronze medal, and she didn't have she didn't have the flag, and they're all waving their flag, and she's just because they weren't prepared for her to win a medal. So,
that's pretty exciting. Yeah.
She's amazing. She's a great person. Like,
Yeah, we've developed a really good relationship with her, haven't we?
Yeah,
she's lovely.
Yeah.
And good that BWL have got her on board as well.
Yes.
Really.
Yeah. I mean, I think they need a lot of you, really, considering the talent pool, because that's the other thing that is on my list for when we're talking about the youth and juniors, is actually the wealth of talent that we have at the minute in the youngsters. Aaron and I are always talking about the fact that we're in this transition period in terms of lifters, and actually when I look at the younger lifters or the lifters on that younger end, there's so many good lifters at the minute. Yeah, that's got to be a really exciting position to be in when you think about the opportunities you get with BWL.
Definitely. I think there's two, and I just want to say, like, there's a lot of great female coaches as well. Like, it's amazing to see how many great female coaches and having more female coaches at competitions, watching that evolve over the years has been amazing as well. But seeing the talent now that's coming through, like youth and juniors, there's such an abundance of talent, and I think that's the difference. Is so many new people coming, or just developing, and such a great rate that it's exciting. Definitely the future of female weightlifting especially is super exciting. You can see these progressing, becoming senior lifters, etc. It's you're looking at youths that qualify as juniors and juniors qualifying as seniors. That's exciting. That's really exciting. And it's amazing to be part of that.
Yeah, it seemed to be sort of on a real sort of crest of a wave, really. We've got Matt Bean coming in, and this whole BWL 2.0, which is probably on 5.0 now. There's the amount of changes that he keeps on bringing in.
Because you've got to keep getting better. You've got to keep raising the bar.
Raising the bar, exactly. But obviously, with the competitions, so we're sort of marrying up with things like strength and depth. It really is making a big shift and highlighting that the sport a lot more, isn't it? Are you seeing people coming in, or more athletes coming in? I mean, obviously there's this sort of the general stuff from CrossFit where people transition into it, but I guess generally with the spotlight, do you see more people coming in as well now? Yeah,
definitely. I think we start to see more kids coming in, which is great, because for so long there was this ridiculous fear around, I can't let my child weightlift because it's going to stunt their growth or damage their bone, which is utterly ridiculous, and then might send their kid out on a rugby pitch. So I think now it's because it's much more understood. You see more kids much more open to it. Doing things like the raise the bar courses that we've done. We've seen some kids come through that. You definitely see more coming through. And Marius coaches at a CrossFit gym in Abingdon, and I do. Lottie comes from a CrossFit gym, and we've had people come through from that as well. You definitely see some quite really strong, exciting people. That you think, great, it's great to see them actually want to focus more on weightlifting.
Come over a little bit. I mean, that again leads me nicely into a question about BWL. BWL 2.0, 5.0, 8.0, wherever we're at now, Matt, in our development of British weightlifting. I want to say, what do you think? But that's a really broad question, because obviously there's been loads of changes. But if we were to focus just on competition, because obviously that's what we've talked about quite a lot in this element of the podcast, what do you think of the changes, so of the British and the English being married up with the CrossFit events and being in the NEC and this sort of atmosphere, the bigger competitions? How do you think that's affected?
I think it's really quite exciting. Once I get over the noise, it takes me about half an hour or an hour to adjust to the noise, and then and once I've got over that, I'm fine with it. But I think actually it makes for quite a more exciting atmosphere, and I think it does introduce more and more people, to weightlifting. So I think it's a very positive thing that they've done. It'd be nice to see, maybe some of that happen with some of the not necessarily tied to the CrossFit competitions, but the same kind of theatre, if you like, and location and great venues for the kind of age groups as well, because I think
it's a good point, actually, because we obviously the seniors, and they sort of now mix in the masters with that, but and it becomes such a spectacular event. But then when and you see the shift in how competitions are starting to be run, and then all of a sudden we go back to bucks or the age groups, and it's a step back into what a traditional BWL comp is.
I'm not saying it has to have the same kind of level of spectacle and theatre, but I think there feels like a bit of a
disparity.
That's true.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because then I'm sitting here thinking, I think part of my problem is so many of the juniors actually then end up qualifying for the seniors. Yeah. So, it's interesting.
And it's not the same, is it? So what's the motivation to then go and do
the age groups? So maybe that's where then they do the whole, which we won't necessarily get into right now, but the conversation about the Sinclair and the with the age groups and trying to make the, not with the masters, with the age groups, with the kids. Maybe that's where that came from necessarily, was that they weren't necessarily being as motivated if they could qualify for the seniors.
Yeah, and I think it's changed, right? So it takes I mean, I think I admire Matt and British Weightlifting, that they have made these changes, because I think you have to make change, and you have to try things, and not everything's going to work, right? You're going to have some things that, but you don't fail, because I firmly believe, and I always say this to my lifters as well, there are never negatives in life, there are only ever positives and learnings. And actually, if you don't put yourself out there and you don't give these things a go, how are you going to know? Because you can't just stand still. You've got to try and push things and move things forward. But change, people deal with change differently, right? So it's how do you kind of manage some of that change? And you've got to be able to kind of take them on that journey with you, and help them understand, well, what does it mean for me? What do I need to do? What needs to change? And how do I get there? And I think change is good, but you have to kind of manage that change. And if you manage it well, then it's gonna be a lot. You can't please everybody, right? You're never gonna please everybody. So, if you can please the majority, then that's a good thing. And I do think the co-locating the English and the British with these competitions has been a positive thing. And I know, again, for some people it's like, well, you don't get the silence when people are, but I think that, actually, I think it, the atmosphere you get, I think is a little bit harder to recreate if you don't do something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, that said, going back to when they did the British at the Ricoh Arena, actually you could get quite a, used to get, quite exciting. If you got some people, really closely competing, there was a bit of an atmosphere. And if you go back years ago, I can remember when I first started weightlifting, a competition would be over in the morning. To get a day competition would be a big thing. Just because it wasn't a popular sport, it's got the popularity is, watching the popularity of the sport grow is amazing. And to then see it at something like Strength and Depth or those big CrossFit competitions, I think actually it's pretty amazing.
And holding its own as well. It's not like it's a poor relation or.
No, it's like that was busy. It was full, and you could definitely feel the excitement and So I think it's a great thing. Yeah, it's different. There is a lot of noise, and people have to get used to that. But I think and I think it's a brave move to actually go and even try it. And I think, kudos for doing that, because you can't just stand still and say, we're going to do the same thing over and over, keep trying different things, but except not everything is going to work. And you go back and you fix. And I think actually that's, what they're, Matt's pretty good at doing actually.
Yeah, you've got to give BWL props for that. I think they do take feedback really quite well, don't they? And
for sure.
I mean, again, for the NEC, it will always be my favourite thing is how many people I think in that audience are actually there for Strength and Depth.
Yes.
Because he's so clever in terms of how he negotiates where those platforms are placed. The fact that you have to walk past them to get to anywhere else does mean that you end up, when somebody, like when Ramiro, I'll never forget when Ramiro came out for that lift, and I felt like the whole place came to watch him. And they're people that wouldn't necessarily know that weightlifting was a sport in its own right in that way. All right, they know it in CrossFit and they know a power snatch, but they don't necessarily know that you can just focus on the technique of that and then see something that impressive. So It's
I really liked the British. It was like you come out to your own bit of music or something, but then they couldn't hear it. So I remember sitting, with Lottie, we put quite a bit of thought in. Well, what you're going to go out on, and then actually when she went out, you couldn't hear it.
We could in the crowd, you could.
It was like firing her up.
This is your song.
That's one of my favourite questions to ask lifters. Not whilst they're lifting, but afterwards. The ones that sit with their headphones in right up until the very last minute. It's like, what is that song? Yeah. That's what I want to know. What is the song that you're listening to right until you throw it at your coach and go out? I'd love to know that.
Some of them are quite interesting, actually. I remember Bella going out in Mexico, and she literally was listening to this really angry techno. Could
you not? I would put Bella down to angry techno.
I think that just worked for her on that, that day. She was like, that was her distraction. But I'm like, that was pretty angry techno.
Go for it.
Get into the zone.
It worked for her on that day. So it was, she lifted really well. But
if that's her hype moment, go for it.
Yeah, but I remember also with that British when they were talking about, with Chris Rust, him and Maris, they went put a lot of time into choosing his music, and then you think, did you actually hear it?
Well, this is, for me, whenever I'm on the platform, do people get in the way, does someone standing get in the way or, distract you, or do you focus, the refs or anything like that, or the music, and I just switch off.
I think it's not a bad thing, because I think if you've got to be distracted. You can't control someone walking in front of you, or someone not turning the music off quick enough, and all of those things. So actually I think it's quite good to have some of those distractions. And actually if you go to the age groups, they've got 2 platforms running. You've got the announcer while someone's going out for a lift, and I can remember one of my lifters totally distracted because the kid on the other platform did a great lift, and his coach was so overhyped about it, completely threw it was it completely threw her off. So it's like you're always going to have to, you can't control those things.
And I'm the complete opposite, where I find that complete when we went to the Olympics and the complete silence, I just wouldn't lift the bar. I don't think I feel like it would really
put you on.
It would be a lot for me,
We've got a masters lifter that's come from one of the CrossFits. He's transferred over from CrossFit, and he did his first competition, and he was like, the silence, he said, I could hear my blood rushing through my body. It was like, that was quite hard, because I could literally hear I
would hear my heart beating now, because obviously you go out pumped. That's what I'd end up focusing on, is my heart beating.
I just used to just literally run out onto the platform, pick up the next fling it, run again. And I was just like, I'm sure I actually sat at the bottom of that before I took that lift, but I literally run out and picked it up and run through it, run up again. And I was that's why when I always try and make my lift, count to 3 before you lift it.
That's a good idea.
Because you think your adrenaline's flowing so much, what feels like 10 seconds to you is not even a second. Because I was used to square blind that I'd sat in the bottom, and taken my time over the lift, but literally I'd run on.
Well, that sort of takes us nicely to one of the quickfire questions I had, which is around the cue points and the change with BWL. I say quickfire, it's not necessarily a quick question, but the change that BWL have introduced in terms of the Masters and the British, and the idea now that Masters will be invited to the British based on their weight category rather than their age and weight, and an open entry sort of system. Have you got any thoughts on that? How do you feel about that as a Masters lifter and as a coach of Masters lifters?
Yeah, I think it just goes back to what we talked about earlier about it's change, and as long as people are properly informed and they have the information they need to make to understand what it is they need to do, I think it's probably not a bad thing, because I think you want competition, right? So sometimes as a Masters you might not be, have that competition, you may not be pushed. So is it, in a good, again, is it a good thing to have more competition and, push you a little bit more? So I think it's, again, you have to try, I go back to try everything and see how it goes. If it doesn't work, then you think of something else or you go back. So I think it's, generally I think it's a positive thing. But yeah, it's, as long as people can understand it, they're taken on that journey. I think it's a good thing. Yeah. What about you guys? What do you think? So put it on you now.
Well, I mean, I love it personally. I think I've always sort of, I've never really been interested in competing, particularly in the Masters, because it's not really competitive in the sense of most people turn up and they're the only person in their weight and age category. Occasionally you might have a couple of people, but you're going to medal so long as you've made 2 lifts. So to me, that's not, I wouldn't want a medal for the sake of having turned up and done something. I mean, there's an element of you turned up.
Well, yeah, I always say that.
So there is that. I don't want to take that away.
You've trained for it. And I always say that the your competition is between you and the bar,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
It's and that's whatever else, anything else, or anyone else is doing, you've just got to go out there and have that competition between you and the bar.
Yeah.
So there is a point, but I do, for some people, I think they need that more competitive environment to push them.
Yeah.
So I don't,
It's a nice thing in the sense of, like I say, I would never take it away from someone that's if you've gone out there, if you've put yourself out there, if you've gone to the Europeans and you were the only person in your age and weight class and you made those lists and you got that medal, you deserved it. Because you did it and you worked for it. But
is it going to be more valuable?
Would it mean more?
Yeah.
And what I love is that since the changes have come out, and there's been questions and there's been people wanting explanations and stuff, but I mean, how many people have contacted you? I've had a couple of people contact me and be like, I'm 2 kilos shy of being invited, and it's almost motivated people to train again or to try harder again.
Exactly.
They would have entered anyway, but all of a sudden they're entering and they're really pushing themselves, and I think I really like that. I think
it's a good thing,
a positive thing.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, it certainly sparked a lot more interest in being a bit more competitive, so looking forward to it. It's almost tempting me to get back on the platform.
I'd like to see that.
Well, it's a good. We've got our next guest is Claire Deacon, so we're going to focus pretty much, I say solely, there will be a bit on books as well, but almost solely on the changes, so that people have got what you're talking about. Something they can come back to, and we could go through some questions and actually explain it, because it is a lot to understand to go from one to another, and communication is something that we've all got to take ownership of, and how we work with BWL in terms of understanding these changes. So hopefully we can get to a point where everybody understands it, and then it will be a really good change, I think.
I think that the most important thing here really is to accept the changes and look forward to it, and when you get to the comp, make it a success, because the worry is, of course, is that they've not read the rules, or people are unprepared as they get there, and then the athletes and the coaches don't have a good time.
It's the key is the communication, because I think if you look back when they tried to change the age groups, then it wasn't. It felt a little bit, I was like, absolutely, I think this is a great idea, but it felt like there wasn't, they didn't have the rankings, and they didn't, so like, how am I supposed to prepare, the kids we coach, because I don't, because the data isn't there or anything like that. So it's like, change is great, and it's a really good thing, and it keeps the sport on its toes. But you have to do the management and the communication, and people have to know what they've got. You need to be able to know what I need to do to qualify for that competition, and that's really important. Because if then you're just trying to guess your way through it.
And I think BWL did take that on board from that age
they
group.
Did,
because I'll be one of the first to hold my hands up. I mean, anybody that listens probably saw me turn up to the call for the age groups and completely disagree with the changes and be very vocal about my opinions on them. And my opinions on the way they were communicated. But this does feel different in the sense of they have been open to doing the podcast. So there's obviously a Masters for any youth or juniors that listen. There's a Masters WhatsApp group. There's lots of questions, but there's been lots of responses from BWL. There's been changes, consultations. So I think it has been. They have taken that feedback.
And I think that's a prime example of they tried to make that change. For whatever reason, it wasn't the good, it wasn't right, and they've learned from it. And it's like, that's life, isn't it? If you don't put yourself out there and you don't try,
don't give it a go.
you're not, actually, that's more like failure than trying, right? It's like, have great ideas, they may not all work, and accept that's the way that it is. And it just goes back to there's positive and you learn from it. If it doesn't work, and you fix it and you move on from it.
Yep, exactly.
I think standing still and not trying to make changes is
worse.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, complacency.
Yeah, because you've got to keep the sport interesting, and keeping it the same does mean it. It's...
Yeah. I mean, talking about changes, you can take us again into the segue of the weight class changes.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's gone back to how it was before it changed. I wasn't expecting that. So
yeah. So, have you got any thoughts?
Yeah, I think again, it's a way of mixing it up, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. It'd be interesting. What makes it quite exciting would be see where people will go with, who will go into what body weight category, and I think people will be testing out what works for them. So I think it mixes it up and makes it a little bit exciting. So.
Yeah. I think particularly if I look at actually both masters and juniors, but if I look at the juniors and the youth. For the weight changes, I think, because there's a couple that are really competitive.
Yeah.
And right now, I'm thinking,
yeah, I'd like to see it stay that competitive.
Is it going to stay? Is they going to where are they going to go? And actually, if they did split and change into different weight categories, that might be good, because then we could have more representation. It's a really interesting thought changes.
It was just interested. They just went back to how it was before because when I competed as a 53 kilo, so then they've gone back to that. So it's like, that's quite interesting.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that for me is communication from the IWF, because obviously those weight class changes came from the IWF, right? And essentially we've just adopted what the IWF are implementing for the Olympics. So
yes, exactly.
For me, it sort of makes sense, because it means then for our athletes that could potentially be future Olympians, they're able to train in the category that they will then qualify in, rather than having to talk about later down the line.
Because it was very complicated otherwise, wasn't it? Like, you had some classes and not other classes, and it just felt a little bit overcomplicated. So hopefully this makes it a much more, it just makes it easier again.
Yeah, it just aligns everything.
Yep. Yeah. So also we just talked about the weight categories and competition, and I just wanted to bring it back to so all the training camps and the internationals that you go to. How does it work with picking the team? Do you just get given the team, or do you actually look at who's performing the best at the moment and then pick those?
So there's a formal selection panel it's made up of people that are independents of weightlifting, but have obviously a connection to it. So it would have an independent chair, and because it has to be a fair process. So they look at who's qualified outright versus who's hit, who's hit absolute versus kind of Commonwealth. So there is quite a big thing around selection process. So a lot of it comes down to you can't just hit a basic qualification, or there's other things around it that have to be factors that come into that.
So you can't just sort of put my name forward and just I suppose not as a youth really, but
that's fascinating, though, didn't it?
Yeah, there is a whole formal selection process.
I didn't realise it was somebody independent, or it was an independent body.
So there, so it's made up of. So there used to be. So I have been on selection panels in the past, but actually now they're kind of moving much more towards this kind of independent, and it is quite hard because you don't ever want to shatter anybody's dreams, but it's a tough process. So you can't take everybody.
So you mentioned there about that whole, you don't want to break someone's dreams, and obviously a lot of these young athletes have got goals and aspirations, and obviously the Olympics or the Worlds or something like that. How do you deal with sort of that phone call or the conversation with someone, with a lifter that expects or is hoping to make that team? And then
I don't have to be the one. You don't. But when I've if I've been I know that athlete really well, then I would always have a chat. I'd always message them or and say, look, it's just a small setback, and I've seen it happen. There's, one person I can think of who lost their place on the junior squad, and she went away and she worked really, really, instead of going, just crumbling and disappearing off, it fired her up to go and work really hard. And, she then qualified for international competition and got back on that squad pretty quickly. Yeah. And I was really proud to see that person do that because, instead of just getting up, she was upset about it, but it fired her up to say, you know what, I'm going to get my place back. And not everybody, has that response, but that's always what we say, just come back stronger.
Yeah.
Keep trying harder. It's not the end, it's just a setback. And you'll learn and you'll grow from that, and just keep trying, because it can make you can work both ways. Like I've seen it that it's you've seen them and they haven't come back, but in a number of cases they've just worked really hard to get back there.
Yeah. It's that incentive, isn't it? And I think you sort of mentioned it quite a few times. That it's the keeping training fun. The competition, the training camps, they're all fun with a serious element, but you've got to maintain that throughout. Yeah. And as soon as it starts to get too serious, and then I think that's probably, if they get that rejection, they probably end up falling away.
Yeah, exactly. And we've got one of our youth lifter, or he's junior now, but he's been with us for years, and he lost his place on regional, and it's like it was heartbreaking. But he's going, he hasn't given up. He's just going, and working even harder, and progressing more. So. Again, it's like you don't, the last thing you want is them to go, well, I'm going to give up. Yeah. I love it when they just go, you know what, I'm going to go away and I'm going to work even harder. And I've seen that before with another girl we had here. She lost her place in regional. She was like, I'm going to actually work harder and show them they made a mistake.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah. It goes back to that conversation we had earlier about mindset.
Yeah.
And start at the chalk bin, or, seeing yourself, thinking about that.
Yeah.
Where do you want to go, and what is this? Is this a setback? Is it the end, or is this a fire to say, actually, no, you've made a mistake there, and I'll show you that you've made a mistake? So I like
exactly.
That.
Catalyst to come back better.
Yeah, build back stronger.
Yep.
Good for them.
Indeed.
Good for them.
Yeah. So obviously we're here at your fabulous place, and I think it's great. It just reminds me of Bethnal Green. That sort of. You walk in and it's history,
You've got all our photo board on the, which
we saw on the way in.
People over the years, and
yeah. I think if anybody's watching, they're probably completely wondering why I'm staring over here. But I've been staring at the plates. There's plates pinned along the wall. Again, I'll do a little video, but there's just so much to look at.
Yeah, that's when someone's broken away, we make them sign it, or there is one along the end. We sadly lost someone from the gym, and we all signed that as a memorial to her.
That's sweet.
That's lovely.
So it's quirky. It's a quirky place.
Yeah. We like quirk. Anyway, sorry, I interrupted.
So I was going to mention. So obviously we've done a few things recently on the Club Cup. So BWL did their pilot scheme of the Club Cup. Are we likely to see Oxford PowerSports?
So we used to do this lifting league many years ago. So when years ago with Giles and a guy called Rob Anderson, who used to coach at St Mary's, we set up the lifting league, and it actually got quite big, but it got a little bit unmanageable. And I even did the odd one as well, because when we'd run out of person, I'd just do what I could basically. So it's great to see that coming back. We definitely are open to it. It's just, how do we manage? It's the management of it, because I think that, we're all like Marius, Gareth, myself. We all have a lot on, and because we all have other jobs, and I think we just worry about the commitment of doing it. Because it is hard work. So yes, definitely I think it's great they're doing it. I think it would be great to be part of it, but we just have to think through: is it viable for us? To find the time, and I'd have to understand how many matches are expected to do, all of those things. Because I think we have some perfect people in here that would be great lifters for doing it. That that this is just they enjoy lifting, and it's it's a kind of pressure-free way of competing.
I mean, that's definitely what we saw when we went to all of them, most of them. One we missed,
I think we missed the first
of the
one.
pilot, and it was just such a nice intro, for beginners or for people that just enjoy lifting without the pressure. It was really nice. But yeah, I can sort of see when you're thinking about a gym your size and with 3 coaches, perhaps navigating that.
Yes, that's the challenge, I think. It's just it might mean that the only day off a week you have, and we all need to rest at times, so it could then just kind of, eat into the only time that you have with your loved ones, dogs, in my case, dogs.
Cats for me.
Yeah, I might just get a bit fed up that I'm leaving them again with my wonderful neighbours that look after them.
Again, I guess it must be pretty tricky, and we sort of touched on that, but having a full-time job, I mean, we've both got full-time jobs, and trying to fit everything out, everything in. How do you balance that with going off on, these Romania trips or Mexico trips and things like that?
Well, that's
all
mainly,
your holiday, I guess.
That's mainly most of my holiday, but because you do get quite a bit of downtime, I'm lucky that I can work anywhere, and my job's quite flexible, and my company is quite happy I'm doing that. So actually, if I've got some really big projects on at work, I can still be kind of present on those. If we've got days of the competition days, generally I don't I don't work, but when you've just got training for a certain amount of time and then you've got quite a bit of downtime, I can still be around for the team, but I can actually still do some work as well. So I'm clawing back a bit of holiday. I'm still working on the kind of major projects, because sometimes you're balancing quite a lot. So, I've got a big project on at work at the moment, and I'm going out to Peru at the end of the month, which kind of clashes, which is getting closer to when that big project, it's a big event. So actually it helps that I can still be doing some work, and I can still, so I'm balancing everything. But yeah, a lot of my holiday does go on that. So, but I try and make sure I have, some holiday to myself.
Yeah. Pretty cool holiday.
Yeah. But I love weightlifting so much that it's not tiring. It is tiring, but it's energizing, if that makes sense. And it helps me to have healthy boundaries with work, because when I'm here, when I've got to be here coaching on a Monday night and a Friday night, I have to stop work at 5 or 5:30 because I have to drive the half an hour to get here and be here for those, because they're expecting me to be here. So it does actually help me put some quite healthy boundaries in with work.
Yeah. You mentioned you work in tech, and myself as well, and it is just too easy to be on, as soon as you wake up, turn the laptop on and just be on, because it never sleeps, does it?
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes I do come home from coaching here and I'll go back online and I'll do some more work. But it's good, because it's like I have to stop at that point and I have to walk away, and you're putting those boundaries in place. It can be difficult to. Sometimes it's like it's hard because you might be in the middle of something that's quite urgent, but you're like, no, I've got to stop. But I'm quite good at being able to pick it up and put it down, and like I can get myself in the work mindset and take myself out of it quite quickly. I never used to be able to. But I've learned that over the flexible working thing, and being able to, I can work anywhere, at any time. So, that's kind of definitely helped.
That helps, because I think, we obviously end up committing ourselves to doing all sorts of things and have a full-time day job. But I sort of see it as, like you say, it forces the boundaries, doesn't it? It would be quite easy for me to be just swallowed by the NHS, because it never stops. So for me then, even editing this will be I have to stop work. I can't be working past. I can't be working extra, staying online, doing more than I should, because we've sat here and done this, and there's an expectation from you that this will go out, and we'll tell people that it's going to go. So it's a nice way for me to do something that I enjoy. That gives me a boundary between what is work and what is it that I actually enjoy doing, and being part of a community and giving back into that community. And I say selfishly, but drawing a line and saying, actually, I'm going to focus on what I want to do now.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's easy to get swallowed by work nowadays, isn't it?
Oh God, yeah. And like, you know, as they said, you know, when I took up weight, I was totally swallowed by it, because, you know, the tech industry at that point, they were always on, you know, they have, you know, it's been a shift over the years to encourage people to have a better work-life balance. Although the pressure, you know, you do feel the pressure. But, you know, going back, like, I don't know, 18 years ago, you were, you know, it was hard work, and it's, you know, you were expected to work really long hours. Yeah. But they have seen the benefit of trying to introduce better work-life balance, but it's taken a long time to get there, and it's still not properly there. So you only get work-life balance if you force to have work-life balance, I think.
Yeah. Which I always think is mad, and I know I'm guilty of it as well, but, you know, the only thing that you never get more of in life is time.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can always get more money, you can always, you know, change jobs, you can always do anything you lose, you can get back in one way or another, aside from time.
Yeah.
And every minute that's gone is gone. So when we give so much of it for free to companies or to work, and quite often either aren't paid. I mean, if you're doing overtime and you're getting paid through the roof, crack on. But if we just getting swallowed because that's life now and that's what society expects, and we aren't then able to do the things that we love, what's the point in life? Like, it's a short life. So
exactly.
We should be...
And the stress can make, you know, like you can be under a lot, you know, like if I've got a massive project on, the stress from that can be quite a lot. And you realise that actually that's not good and healthy. You can't be like that all the time. So you have to kind of find ways to shut off from it. And, you know, this is a great way of me shutting off and, you know, enjoying a life outside of work. And it's so contrasting but there's so many crossovers, if that makes sense, you know. But, you know, it just helps to have a much healthier balance, definitely.
And it's a nice way, I imagine, for you to then help the kids as well, in terms of fulfilling their life and getting the most out of their lives. Yeah. Because they're so young, you know, even the juniors, really, they don't feel quite as young as they are, some of them, but they're so young. They've got so much to go, but you can help them sort of understand that life balance. And I'm like, stay in education as long as possible, because you're a long time working. And I started work when I was 15, so I didn't go to a university or any of those things. I literally left school and went to work. So I've been working a hell of a long time. So I always say to them now, I know school ain't that great, but just stay in education as long as you can, because, you know, you're going to be doing that job for, you know, a long time. But also realising that one bomb at that one comp is not...
exactly.
There will be millions of more opportunities.
Like, that's what I say to them. Like, it's like when they've hit disappointment, you know, it's just one competition. You're going to come back and you're going to do so many more and you're going to have good times and bad times. So, and there's no negatives, just positive and learnings. That's my...
I'm going to take that one and add it to my it starts at the chalk bin. I took my little quote.
Stick it on the post-it.
Starts at the chalk bin.
Stick it in the gym.
There's no negatives.
But that's what I generally say in life, you know. And it's like, you know, you go through difficult times, and believe me, you know, I'm going quite through a difficult time at work at the moment. And, you know, trying to switch it to a positive is, you know, I'm having to work hard to do that, you know. And it's some days you do get over-focused on the negatives, you know, but I have to kind of switch myself back into positive mode.
Growth mindset.
Yeah,
which I think, again, just ties it all the way back, isn't it, to this sport being as much physical as it is mental in all aspects, and then that really supporting everywhere else in life. If you can get through the growth of an injury, if you can get through the growth of learning from being a beginner that can't snatch a wooden dowel to being able to snatch, and apply that mindset that you learn through weightlifting to then the harder areas of your life. It's a really nice transference there of skill. So
definitely,
and vice versa. As you said, you know, what you've taken from your experience of business, the ups and the downs, you can sort of bring in into weightlifting and looking after the kids, being the mum to them.
Yeah, exactly.
But then
and
also,
equally on the flip side, when you're in a competition, you have to make some split-second decisions. And you know, I like you take that into your work. You know, I have to make decisions sometimes, and you start to learn to trust your instinct a little bit more, rather than kind of overthink something. So, it's crossed over both ways, definitely.
Yeah. We were talking just before we started recording, and you were saying about how being a coach has made you a better manager, and I can really identify that with that as well, in terms of even something simple as when we've been coaching, looking at a person's biomechanics and thinking, okay, I can't teach that person a squat in exactly the same way I can teach that person a squat. It makes me think then when I'm at work about everybody responding to things differently, and so there's lots of skills in weightlifting that I think people maybe don't appreciate can be applied in lots of different areas. If you're a coach, if you're a TO, the high pressure environments of comps, all of us that are there can take something and apply that elsewhere.
Yeah, definitely. I think I've learned because when you're in competition, you may not feel calm, but you have to look calm. So that's definitely something else I've probably taken into, my work as well, where, I may not feel particularly calm about something I'm working on, but I won't necessarily show it. So I'm going to say it doesn't always like that, because I have good, depends what side of the bed I get out of some days. But generally I try and, just, stay calm all the time.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, definitely weightlifting and coaching weightlifting has taught me to look calm.
It's funny, isn't it?
Even when I'm vomiting my heart on the platform.
But we do see some coaches. It's interesting being, on the marshals table, or TC or something. But we see some coaches, the difference in the experience. Whether it be someone like you that is nice, cool, calm, and collected, but obviously the feet panicking underneath the water. But it's important for the athlete to see that calmness. Because they absorb it, don't they?
Yeah, definitely.
But then other coaches we see just running around like headless chickens.
Sometimes I know I feel like if you're like getting close to you've got to change the board or something, and especially if you're if there's two people with you coaching, it's a bit easier. But if you're on your own, it's like it's a little bit harder you've got to keep an eye on the board, and you've got to you need to change your weight at some point, and it's coming
strategic.
up, and it's a little bit you're loading a bar, and you're trying to. It does feel like you're massively multitasking at that point.
I talk about it all the time, but that's why I love the Marshall Station, is watching the coaches. And the running around isn't necessarily the bit that sort of is really interesting. I love watching how coaches coach in the back room, but what I find most interesting is how coaches react when their athlete misses a lift, from a psychology perspective. So for me, with Lottie with the 100 kilo snatch, say, if she'd missed that, which I would have been shocked if she did, considering how confident she was, I know how you would have reacted, and it would have been that calm, like, it's okay.
It doesn't matter, let's move on. Yeah.
But then seeing how that impacts your athlete compared to a coach who is like this.
Yeah.
When an athlete misses a lift, is, from a TO's perspective, for me, really interesting to then watch that shift. Or some coaches will remove themselves because they can't contain that frustration. It's a really interesting spot to be in, that Marshall's table, to watch and learn myself in terms of how athletes and coaches interact, because some athletes actually respond really well to that, which I find really fascinating. But they do respond to that. The coach is pissed off, and they go out even stronger than they did before. Whereas if I came off and Aaron had his head in his hands, I'd be like, just withdraw me. Just don't take me out. Withdraw me now.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting because some athletes respond differently.
And I think you have to coach in your own style, right? And my style is not. That's just I can't show disappointment, because actually I'm not disappointed. Like if I can't be disappointed in someone that's gone out and given it, that's just how I feel about it. It's horrible when you send an athlete out and they're about to bomb out. I don't want to watch, to be honest with you, but I have to, and then you just have to be there if it doesn't go right. But I'm never ever, I can never say of any lifter ever I've ever been disappointed in them.
Yeah.
Because that's just not how I feel.
Yeah. So another thing I kind of like about weightlifting, though, is that coaching is so independent, in the sense of you coach in your style, and the right athletes find you, or you find the right athletes, because how I like to be coached is the coach I'll find, who I'll work well with, and I think that's something that's very specific to this sport. Well, maybe not, but for me more so for this sport is that the coaching is so individualized that you have to really find someone you gel with, or that
Definitely.
works with you.
And I'm not everybody's cup of tea, and
but that's okay.
That's how it is, so you have to accept that. I find that sometimes quite hard because I want everyone to like me and I want to do my best for everybody, but it doesn't always work out, and you just have to accept and move on if it doesn't work out. And as long as that person carries on lifting and doing what they need to do, then I'm happy with that, really. It's sometimes hard to let people go, especially if you've got an emotional connection, and I do get quite emotional,
invested,
but you after a while, you get over it and you move on.
Yeah. I mean, it's quite impressive the amount that you've achieved in.
Thank you. Yeah.
Like I say, it was probably the reason why I asked you. I must have been 2 years ago now, and said, would you consider it? We'd never even had a guest on, but I could tell just from watching you in the back room the amount of experience you'd had, and then sitting here and hearing about 18 years worth of, 16 years worth of this gym and all the things you've achieved is incredible. And everything that you give to BWL and to the lifters and the athletes and everybody that you come into contact with, and to the TOs, because I have never ever, even when I was a newbie TO, and all the coaches hated us because there was a whole TO v coaches thing back then. I think never.
You guys do a great job, and it's hard being a TO. I wouldn't want to be a TO. I'm like, I tried it once and I was like, I can't do this. I actually can't do this. So you can't ever have a go at a TO, because you do a great job, and I've got massive respect for all of you, and you make the decisions that you see at that time. I don't necessarily always agree with how some of the decisions go, but you respect that, that's their decision, and you can't. That's how it is, and I'd never ever have a problem with any TO at all.
I mean, I think it's fair to say that sometimes the TOs don't agree amongst ourselves about people's opinions, internationally, nationally,
But
so
we're all there because we
point.
love the sport,
Exactly.
right? So
exactly.
you've got it's all about respecting each other, definitely. So,
exactly.
And I think you guys are great, and I remember you messaged me once after a comp, and I was like, you said something really nice, and I was like, oh, that's lovely, because someone's noticed your coaching style, and they that makes me feel really proud.
I can't remember which comp that was, but I remember doing it. I remember I think you were in a boot.
I was. I had two fractured feet, and I was running around bucks.
Was it bucks? And I remember messaging you, and just because I remember watching how hard you'd worked that weekend, because I hadn't left the Marshall's table, and just thinking somebody needed to say,
and actually
it was lovely.
Watching
you do that for 2 days straight was incredible, because you didn't stop, and you could see that none of that was for you. It was for the people
and it was
you were there with.
Just two fractured feet, and I'm like hobbling around the warm-up room.
And I'm sure other people said it to you as well, but I just remember getting home and thinking, somebody needs to tell that woman that
it was lovely. It was a really nice...
And I didn't even know who you were. I had to go
get on my lockdown profile.
Who is she? You've got to find out. That's her. Right. Just say, I did see you and I saw everything that you did.
It was so nice to get that message, and someone that, has observed you and says, I like the way you coach, and you did a great job. That makes me feel really proud. So
I'm glad. I'm really glad. But it makes me really happy that you came on the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been I've really enjoyed it. So I'm like first podcast.
I feel really privileged. And you do lots of sharing of some photos on our Instagram, because I feel like people need to see
this
little
place that's tucked away in Oxford.
Come down and have a crack.
Well, you said you got a comp next weekend, is
We're
that right?
Off to Elite Bodyworks, yes. So when we were signing people up for the competition yesterday, I still thought I was available. So I've had a kind of just a busy, crazy time, and I found myself just double booking myself all the time, and realised I was sending a load of people, which was just going to put huge pressure on Marius and Gareth, So then I was like, okay, let's find another competition. And, we need to try and get, Lottie a competition before she goes out to Peru. So we've got another, I think, 6 people lifting next week. So,
that's awesome.
So it was gutting not being at the, when you see your whole team and, they're all doing really well, it's like, oh, I'm not there. But, I was actually equally privileged to be at my friend's wedding yesterday. So.
Exactly. And you were there because, like you say, you're sending a voice note.
I send voice notes.
And even if you hadn't sent the voice note, that would have been in your lifter's head because you've put that there. Like you've done just as much work.
I think I said something like, go out with confidence like a bad bitch.
Love it. Like a bad bitch.
Like a bad bitch.
Taking that one as well.
Me too.
That's my next posting.
Go out like a bad bitch.
Next time you go for a jerk, I'm going to yell, do it like a bad bitch.
I have used that before, actually. I have used that with a few lifters.
I'm having it.
Not
just
like my own, actually.
Yeah.
Because it is true. Like, you need to,
Yeah, no, I collect people's... So the starts at the chalk bin is something I stole from Nigel Bluff. I heard him telling his lifters, and then he had a conversation with me at the Marshall's table about it, and it really stuck with me. And I sort of collect...
Yeah.
Because you hear them all the time, because we're around the coaches all the time.
Yeah, you do.
And you hear their little mantras, and some of them stick with me, and I like the, confidence, like a bad bitch.
Original, because we've still got, a few of the original lift, like, Artie and Aaron, and like years ago when they were kids, I'd be like, they'd do a lift, I'd go, easy money. And all the time it was like, easy money. That was my trademark with them, and I was like, I threatened to do a celebration with them, going like, easy money.
Lightweight, baby.
Yeah, lightweight. This is it. He says this. He'll say lightweight just as I'm about to do something really heavy, and it makes me laugh, and then I can't.
I put my Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, because he does a really crap impression. It's really bad. It makes me laugh.
You must do it. Lift harder.
So then I end up missing the lift. It's his fault.
Yeah. But sometimes you do have to be tough love and say you need to try harder.
Yeah. To be fair, and he does tell me that.
Yeah.
Because I often do just need to try a bit harder. To be fair.
Yeah. I think I've said that to a couple of
Yeah.
More the boys than the girls, to be honest with you. You need to go out there and try harder.
Yeah.
Because they respond to that better than.
Yeah. Just commit to it.
Yeah. I think, Chris Ross at the British, like he just went out and didn't get his first, and I'm like, try harder.
Yeah.
You
didn't even try.
And then he goes out and he puts the effort in and just smashes it. I'm like,
Yep. Well, thank you. I'm going to steal a couple of those little quotes and put them on my post-its.
Absolutely. I'm full of them.
And you feel free to voice note them to me.
I will do. You're going to have that now.
Start playing them in our gym sessions. So lovely. So this is episode 202. So
great.
It's lovely having you on.
Thank you very much for having me. I've really enjoyed it. I've loved it.
Yeah, good. I'm glad. And I'm going to encourage anybody who can get to Oxford to come down. I'm going to assume that you do drop-ins.
Absolutely.
And come and do a drop-in because, come and have a session because this place is definitely somewhere I would like to
come in the spring.
Do a lovely
It's pretty cold here in the winter and it's quite warm in the summer.
Nice. Well, we'll be coming back, that's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So thank you.
And when we next do a competition, you guys can come and.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We will do one at some point.
Let us know in advance.
It's just another thing I have to then put on my list of things to do.
Having done our first competition, I can now fully respect the effort that goes into that. So, no rush.
It's insane.
Yeah, it nearly killed us.
Yeah, it is hard work.
Yeah.
Hard work.
Now I feel like I can appreciate everything from all angles because that's the one thing we hadn't done is run our own. And then we ran it and it was like... On the day, you're still thinking of things that you'd.
The great thing about doing competition here is that we tidy the twice a year we do a competition is when we really tidy the place up, and it's like shiny. I call it like polishing the turd. But then it's like, it's all nice, and then it just, I don't know, it just gets in a mess again. It's like you go up, we clear all up there, and now it's back in a mess again.
It's character for sure. But so if people are around. Come on down, do a drop-in.
Definitely.
Yeah,
love to have you.
Let us know when you're doing your next comp and we'll be here.
Great.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Have you.
Thank
you.
Thank you for coming to the bar. Done.
Done.
Hey. Retired.
Just in time, 26.
You've been listening to the Bar, Strength in Every Story. Thanks so much for listening. We're so happy to have you as a member of our community. We have a passion for weightlifting, but we also have an insatiable curiosity about everyone's story. We hope you've enjoyed the show. If you did, make sure to like, rate, and review. And we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, find us on Instagram at _2_thebar. And be sure to hit the website at 2-thebar.com. See you next time on To The Bar. And remember, there's strength in every story.